I know what I ordered, just make it. Years ago, I worked at a local coffee shop. We served the standard coffee shop menu of coffee drinks and pastries we made in-house. One of our coffee drinks on the menu was a macchiato. We served a traditional macchiato, which is a double shot of espresso with a touch of steamed milk and milk foam. But since a certain chain has named a very different drink the same thing, I would always try to clarify what the customer was ordering when they asked for one. One day, a woman came up to the counter on her cell phone. She briefly pulled the phone away from her head long enough to mouth "caramel macchiato" at me. I started my spiel about how we serve a traditional macchiato, which is quite small. Did she want that one, or like the other place makes? She cut me off 3 words in and dramatically said, "I know what it is, just make it." So I rang her up and made it. I made her a tiny drink with espresso, caramel syrup, and milk foam. When I gave it to her, she finally got off the phone and told me I clearly made it wrong. I explained I made what she ordered, as she told me she knew what she was ordering. She now said she wanted one like she would get at a national chain, which I happily made and charged her for. She did not get a refund on the first drink. Here's the thing, it doesn't matter if you know what you're ordering, or you know exactly what a macchiato is. If the person making the drink is at all confused, you're probably gonna get burned. Grandma also got the bank. Saw a lot of bank compliance, so I had to post one from my grandma. She loved to tell this story. TLDR at the bottom, on mobile plus hungover. Don't know how that's relevant, but okay. Around 2011, my grandma had a fall, and it messed up her leg. After about a year of constant infection and other issues, she got it amputated. Because I was 17, and my poor grandma and I had a pretty cool deal, I got to use her car whenever I needed, as long as I drove her to her appointments, shopping, etc. I was down because free car, and she'd always get me lunch or something. So after a few years, we go to the bank. We went every other week for her to get out cash. Grandma always wanted to go into the bank and talk to people, rather than use the ATM to withdraw. No big deal. She's old and lonely, so I'd wheel her in and we'd wait in line so she can make small talk. We get to a teller she knows, who greets her as usual. Grandma knows her name, and they do the small talk, and we get to the withdrawal. Teller, "I just need your license, Grandma." Grandma, "Here you are." This was usual, she'd show it each time. Teller, "Sorry, Grandma, we can't accept it. It's been expired for 2 years. Grandma, "Well, yeah, I can't drive. One leg, remember? And I used it last week, and the week before, etc. Teller, "Sorry, we can't accept it." Grandma, "Well, let me talk to Bill, the manager." Teller fetches Bill, who greets Grandma. They make small talk, and then he tells her the same thing. I ask if I can withdraw it for her. I show my license, same last name. I have an account there too that she originally helped me get, and her name was on. No dice. They don't offer any other solutions, just no. So Grandma just smiles and says she'll be back. I roll her outside and she apologizes that today will be longer than our usual 2-hour errand trip. I didn't have much to do, so whatever. We go to the DMV, same plaza, and spend 2 hours getting her a temporary ID, no photo, and wheel her back over to the bank. We roll in and Bill greets her, but says he still can't let her withdraw. Probably assumed she just tried to get a different teller. Grandma, "No problem. OP, since these people treat your grandma, a loyal customer of 45 years, like crap, give her no warning that they're changing policy, and offer no help on a solution, close your account." I'm a bit skeptical, but do what she says. I only had about $80 in it anyways. Bill, "Threatening to close your account won't let us withdraw your grandma's funds." Me, "Not threatening, I want to close." Bill, "Okay, your loss." Grandma, "Our family won't support a bank that is so impersonal, so now I want to close my accounts." Bill, "Well, we can't without ID." Grandma, "Well, here is the flimsy piece of paper from the DMV, no picture that says who I am." Bill starts getting nervous, apologizes, and says he can do the withdrawal, but Grandma is steadfast into doing it. Bill has to make a bunch of calls and begs Grandma to stay. No dice. Grandma withdraws $50K in cash, the most they would allow to hand to a person on short notice, and has the bank transfer another $40K or so to her new bank of choice. We went there right after the DMV and opened a new account with her and I didn't mention it earlier as it gives it away. Bill apologized the whole time, was trying to get her to stay on, offering all sorts of rewards and preferred checking, etc. Grandma made a big scene about it, telling everyone that they wouldn't let this poor amputee old lady get out her own money, and the competitor bank offers a $100 sign-on bonus for opening an account, and everyone should go there instead. Bill looked like he was passing a kidney stone when he realized she was serious, and how much money he just lost through branch. Obligatory, yes, I know they want ID for security purposes, and it's a good practice. For 2 years, they never cared or mentioned about it, and suddenly, bam! If they would have done something like, hey, this time we can accept it because we know you, but we just updated our policy, so you will need to have an updated ID. Grandma would have been cool. But nope, they didn't even offer things like go use the ATM or write your grandson a check and he can cash it. They were just being stubborn on policy. This last paragraph summed up my thoughts pretty well, actually. Yes, I can kind of see where the bank is coming from with the whole security thing, but you need to give them some sort of other method. If you can't get your ID that day, but you need your money, they need to have some sort of method to get your money out. All you need is $5. I was stationed in Germany in the 80s, and when it came time for me to PCS, go to my next duty assignment, nobody realized they hadn't gotten me my orders. Typically, you would receive your orders for your next assignment about 45 days in advance, so you can get everything in order, turn in all your gear, and clear the post. There are dozens of things you have to do, and it takes some time. Unfortunately, nobody realized that I hadn't gotten my orders until about 2 weeks before I was due to leave, and I didn't know any better because it was my first duty station. After receiving my orders, I had to clear everything in about 2 days, which required my traveling to an entirely different city, since our company headquarters was located about 2 hours from where my platoon was stationed. To say it was grueling is pretty much an understatement, but I somehow managed it. One of the last things I needed to do was close out my bank account, so off to the bank I went, orders in hand. When I inquired about how to close out my account, I was told I needed to leave them 3 copies of my orders, and they would freeze my account for 30 days, and then I could have my money. The trouble with that was I was going to leave in about 10 days at that point, and that was all the money I had, other than a few marks in my pocket. I understood why they did it, but it didn't help me at that point. Since it was a checking account, they wanted to make sure I didn't run amok with a checkbook and leave a bunch of merchants with bounced checks. After a moment of thought, I thanked them and told them I'd have to think about it, and then got in line for the teller. When I got up to her, I inquired as to how much I had to leave in my account to keep it open, and she replied $5. I told her to give me everything except the $5, and I left. I figured $5 was a small price to pay for 30 days. I did leave a forwarding address, so for about 3 years I got my statement, with the balance increasing by a couple of cents, and eventually they closed my account for lack of activity, I guess. Wait, can they really do that? I mean, it's only $5, so it's not a huge deal. But is there some sort of minimum where they're allowed to close your account if you don't touch it? I mean, what if you had, say, $100,000 in there and hadn't touched it for 10 years? Can they just straight up close your account and say, sorry, you lost your money? Working around the problem. This is my dad's story. My dad is the shop supervisor for a government repair garage, and as a result, there are a lot of stupid rules. The one discussed today will be the one that says that all line items over $1,500 goes to tender. For years, he's tried really hard to provide good tools and equipment for his staff. Every time something goes to tender, it turned out to be cheap junk that breaks too soon or is just completely unusable. A few examples of this are a vehicle scan tool and an overhead crane that went to tender. The scan tool received was $200. The government paid almost $2,000 at the local Canadian Tire. It didn't have the enhanced abilities of a proper professional scanner. The overhead crane was really cheap and broke on the first use. The tender doesn't allow for specific items either. Example, an air compressor can only be listed on tender by its horsepower rating, with no mention of any other details like the tank size and compressor type. Trying to get a proper scan tool for the shop, my dad skirted the rules and bought one from the local Snap-on dealer. His decision got vetoed, and it was to be returned. It cost $4,500 FYI. Now on to the good part. In order to get the scan tool he wanted, instead of returning it to the Snap-on dealer, he asked him if he would be able to pay him with installments. The Snap-on guy agreed, and did 5 installments over 5 days. To get the crane he wanted, he was even more creative. As it turns out, there's no need to go to tender when you're buying repair parts, so he purchased the entirety of his overhead crane as components for repair. It's been his strategy ever since. You know, it's becoming a very common theme in malicious compliance stories. It turns out, the more specific rules you have, the easier they become to avoid because of all the glaring holes they have in them. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider subscribing. And if you really liked it, maybe give it a thumbs up and a share. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.